All right, what's up, Des? How you doing?
I am doing great. Thank you, Ivan. It's good to be here. It's an honor.
I'm just thanking you for being a part of my first podcast. This is my very first podcast. I'm excited to have you on.
This is awesome.
When I heard your testimony on Facebook about the music industry, all the things that happened to you, I was like, I gotta have her on and share her story. So that's why I brought you here to share your story. So
How far back we going?
we can go as far back. Let's go back to childhood. So you were
Okay.
born and raised in Chicago?
Yes, born and raised in Chicago. We did travel a lot in Chicago, like the north side, northwest side, like just all over the place. We were moving like once a year.
So was it your mom and dad?
It was just mom. My
just your
dad,
mom?
unfortunately, was more like game banging lifestyle, alcohol, drugs, that type of life. So I saw him. I can't even remember. Last time was probably like 3, 4 years old, and then the next time would be like around 12 years old.
Wow.
And that was it.
So it's multiple you all, like multiple siblings?
So I was raised with two brothers, which are from my mom's side. For my dad's side, apparently there are others out there that I do not know. So
Oh, okay.
yeah.
So you guys moved around Chicago, you said, from place to place. So what's all the different areas you lived in Chicago?
You sure you want?
Oh, it's those many?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. So you've lived in a lot of different places in
Yeah.
Chicago.
I
Okay.
think it's best to
Got you.
keep my name out.
Oh, I got you.
Yeah. Okay. So, growing up in a single mom household, I just want to say, that I know that my mom did her best at the time. And this was before she gave her life to Christ. So she dealt like with a lot of rage. And from there, I just like, she would go out and she was working and she was trying, she was hustling and stuff like that. But unfortunately, the enemy just crept in and through her friends and whatnot. So at around like I think I was 5 years old or 6 years old, that's when like sexual stuff was happening to me. Like I was being molested like by her friends or her friends' kids. Like it was just people coming in, next door neighbors, stuff like that. So at a young age, I just felt really upset. I was very angry. And I felt like I couldn't talk to her about it because she grew up in a household where she did not experience love from her mom, and she was abused from her father, like
Wow.
sexual abuse. So it's like, she was very much closed off, and I won't. My mom, I'm sure she loves us. You know what I'm saying? She was just closed off, and you can't teach something that you weren't taught.
Yeah.
She didn't know what to do, so she did her best, but unfortunately, that's what happened, and that I feel like that
Open it
paved the way, to moving through the years, different areas we moved to, and then by the age of 12, we just had a very terrible relationship. I was very upset, very angry as a child. I knew of God because my brother was going to church, my aunt was going to church, and they would take me. I was 8 years old when that happened. And so by the age of 12, I'm just like, God, if what they say is true and you are really here and, you apparently know our whole life and you've written down this story and all that stuff, if they say, that how my life would have been, like, why? I'm like, why the heck would you bring me here?
Yeah.
Like, I literally was so angry as a child, and I used to make fists, and I'm like, why would you bring me here? Like, why would you do this so that you could just watch me suffer? Like, that's evil. That's wicked. You're an evil God. But obviously, that's not the case at all, right?
Yeah, not the case at all. So was it a Catholic church you guys were going to?
No,
was it a
it
Pentecostal? Or what?
Yeah, very much Pentecostal, very
Okay.
much Pentecostal. I mean, I walked in there, they were dancing, shouting, praying in tongues, and I was just a child, and I just kept laughing because I'm like, what is happening? But I was drawn to it at the same time. Like, I'm like, this looks crazy. I'm like, everyone looks crazy, but this is nice. I was like, this is really nice. And I feel like at that moment, like the Lord did something to my heart. Like it didn't matter how far out I went. It didn't matter what I did, what happened, whatever. I felt like he had this hook on me. You know what I'm saying? Like just this, he stamped my heart at that moment. You know what I'm saying? So yeah.
So what happened? What made your mom go to a Pentecostal church? Was her background like? How did she end up like all the different kind of churches? She ended up going to a Pentecostal.
My mom, actually, it wasn't even her. So it was her brother who was going to church.
Oh, okay.
So he's the one who took us as children at 8 years old. Yeah. So that's how that started. And then we got my mom to finally go to the church. And that's how she started going and really just pursuing after God, and then changed her life around at some point. But at the age of 12, this was a big moment where my mom, she dealt with a lot of rage. And so when she would come home from work, we all knew, like, don't say nothing. You say the wrong thing, she's just going to blow up, you know? And, like, there was a time where she asked me a question, like, to wash the dishes or something. And I was like, just give me one moment, please. Like, I'm almost done with this math problem. And my mom just went ham. Like, she was very physically abusive and emotionally, mentally. Like, she would say a lot of wicked things at the time. So she unfortunately, like, abused me. She was, like, bashing my head against the wall. And I'm not saying, Mama, if you're listening, I love you. You are not who you were back then. I want you to remember that. God has pulled you out of that. But, yeah, I was sitting next to a wall here, and she just came, like, over me and started bashing my head into the wall multiple times. Like, you don't talk to me like that. And then she was like, grab your stuff, get out.
And how old? You said you were 12?
12.
Wow.
She kicked me out the house. And that's when everything, like, kicked off. Like, I'm walking the streets. I'm literally walking down.
So this is the first, when she first kicked you out, you didn't have anybody call, like, your uncle? Because I wonder, was your uncle, like, did he realize what you guys were going through? That's why he said, let me get my niece and let.
You know what? I wouldn't know, because he didn't talk to me ever about that. As I got older, I spoke to my aunt about it, who was in the house one time and saw my mom literally, like, beating me up, abusing me. And she's like, I went to say something to your mom. She's like, hey, you're going to kill her. And she said that my mom turned around and looked at her with, like, darkness in her eyes and was like, I will kill you type stuff.
Dang.
So she said after that, she was like,
left it alone, wash her hands up.
Yeah.
So,
which I would never do.
Yeah.
You know?
'Cause your niece, it's your blood.
Yeah,
and that's your
no
sister.
judgment here.
Yeah. And we just being truthful, being real. So, okay, so she kicked you out, and you said you were walking the streets.
Yeah, so this area is like Lawrence Pulaski area. So I'm literally walking down Lawrence. And you would think, in my mind, like, I'm passing adults. I'm a 12-year-old child. I'm crying. I'm alone. And I'm passing, like, adults. You think anyone would just be like, hey, are you okay? Yeah, nothing. So in that moment, to be honest, like, I got the feel, like, for the streets. Like, I don't know, I kind of, like, fell in love with the way I just felt freedom. I felt so much freedom. I felt so much peace, which you think about it now, and it's like, how the heck are you feeling peace in the streets?
Yeah.
But it was like being away from my mom, the house, the abuse, mental abuse, all the sexual abuse that has happened. You know, it's just like I felt freedom. I felt peace.
But, I mean, how long? Not immediately.
Right. Okay, so, yeah. Man, that was like, because my mom did come out, yes.
So, okay, let me backtrack. So that first night, what happened that first night? How did you sleep? Where did you sleep at?
Okay, so I walked to a friend's house.
Okay.
Yeah, and she let me stay there for like two nights. And then I pleaded with the girl's mom not to call my mom. Don't tell her where I'm at, please. Like, just let me live with you. But they called my mom. So Mama came. Mama picked me back up. We had arguments again, and this time I kept leaving. So literally, I kept leaving that house from that very first time where she kicked me out, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16. Even at 16, I think at 17 years old, I finally went and, like, stayed in one place with my mom for a bit.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so during those years, I'm 12 years old. I'm already, like, in that area. I was getting involved with gangs, getting jumped, literally left for dead on a pavement. Yeah.
So you wanted to get jumped into a gang, and this is like they just targeted you?
This is me, 12 years old. Don't even know what I'm doing, right? I'm hanging out with a group of people that I liked. I had no idea, like, they're one gang, and then I'd hang out with someone else, like, the opposite side of the street. Had no idea that they're part of a different gang. So I was 12.
Yeah,
like, what did you expect? Someone should have taught me something,
you
know, like, hey, you're hanging out, you know. But, yeah, so it just happened like that, where there's these huge group of women. They were older women, And I remember walking down this, there was an alley right here, and I'm walking down this street. And for some reason, this voice tells me, you need to go down this alley and run. And in my mind, I'm like, I don't know what I thought I was so tough. I'm like, I ain't running nowhere. I'm walking toward this crowd, because why not?
Yeah.
Yeah, but that crowd, they jumped me.
But one of those people in the crowd had to be your friend because you were hanging with.
Yes. So one of them was, she came up to me and was like, you ain't leaving this group of people until you fight someone. And I was like, okay. I said, I'll fight you. And right before we even did anything, someone like punched me on the side of my face. At that point, I knew like I wasn't going to win because there were so many people. There was like 20 women or something.
Wow.
So I grabbed the fence. I curled up to a ball, grabbed the side of the fence, and just stayed there. They were like ripping out my hair. They were hitting me with chains. I had chain marks.
Wow.
They were stomping on me, all kind of stuff.
I didn't even know women gangs ran in Chicago like that. So this was had to be, I'm not going to try to tell you the age, but this had to be the early 2000s, you know.
Yes.
Because you probably might close to my age.
I'm 37 now.
Yeah, I'm 39.
Yeah.
So, all right. So, we're close to the same age. I didn't know they were running like that. The gangs were running.
It was bad.
Wow.
It was bad.
And these are this is Latin gangs, or this is, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
You knew.
Yeah, I mean, only Latin gangs, I really, the Latin Kings. Okay, guys. Hey, I don't have no affiliation with none of so, I'm just.
Me neither.
Yeah.
Disclaimer, we are not a part of any gangs.
Exactly. So, wow, 12, and this is why you still were 12 at this time.
Yeah.
And they did that to you at a 12-year-old.
Yes.
12 years old.
Eventually, at that point, I get scooped up by, so funny, there was a hooker in the area, and she's like, I'm going to take care of you. So she literally brought me into her space. And that was wild because she was a hooker, and then there was another lady there, and then there was like so many children.
Wow.
So many children. And they're like, if you want to stay here, you're going to have to help us raise these kids. Wow. I didn't even know what to do.
And they used to bring Johns back to their place?
No, I've never seen any, but they would leave, and I would be there with all of these kids.
Wow.
Like, hey, So do you want me to just keep going?
Oh, yeah, just keep going. Yeah.
All right, so my mom ended up finding me there. Thank God, because when she did, and mind you, at this point now, my mom's already seeking the Lord. She wants to have a relationship with me. She's trying to bring me back. But I'm like so closed off, like dead inside towards my mom and like family or anything like that, that I just literally, my mom brought me back home. My mom is super excited to see me. Oh my gosh, my baby, thank God you're alive. Like she puts me to bed and it's like 1, 2 in the morning. And I promise you, it was almost as if I could hear the streets calling my name. Wow. Yeah, literally, like, Desiree, come out.
Yeah.
Come out. And I would get up. No fear. I've already been jumped 3 times. I've already, like, been through some stuff, but there was no fear in me. I literally got up as a child, still young.
So how old were you then?
I think we're still 12.
Wow.
Still
I'm thinking
12.
that time had progressed to like 15.
No, still 12.
Wow, not even a teenager yet.
Not even a teen, and went right back into the streets again.
Wow.
Like, absolutely no fear. I'm sleeping in abandoned buildings. Yeah, like finding spaces. I'm sleeping in regular hallways. And it's wild, like, to think, like, at that time in my life, I chose to do that stuff.
Yeah.
Like, I could have went back home. I could have, spoke with my mom.
Comfortable bed.
Yeah. But no, everything inside of me, like, I was addicted to, like, just being in the streets. And I would sit up in buildings, like, sitting up on the step like this, and then just lean my head. And when I heard someone open a door or walking or whatever, I would pretend that I was awake and I was waiting for someone.
Wow.
Wow, dude.
And so during that time...
And no one said anything.
I know, but I'm talking about even the police having run-ins with the police at that age.
They were picking me up. Often, but, nothing. My mom would plead with them. Hey, help me with this girl. They're like, pretty much like, we brought her to you. You guys are on your own. I've come out the house one time after my mom had beat me, and I'm like, hey, I need help. My mom is, and they're like, she needs to beat you more. I'm like, all right.
Wow.
Yeah, I was just like, okay.
So you probably lost a lot of confidence in police, too, during that time.
Yeah, no confidence in family, no confidence in God at that time, no confidence in cops. Like, I literally felt like everyone was just incapable of love. Like, there was Like, that's just a buzzword, or that's
Yeah.
just a word people say, but no one can really love you. No one. I felt no one at all. None. So my mom finds me again, sends me to go live with my dad. At this point, I have not seen this guy at all since I was super young. And I wanted to see him. I wanted to be with him. I would tell my mom, and she would just be like, don't talk to me about your dad. Don't talk to me about your dad. Now looking back, I'm like, I totally understand everything she said. This woman was sparing me.
Wow.
But I needed to go through what I had to go through to realize it myself. Because so I go to live with my dad in Peoria, and he's just a depressed man. Sad, very, very sad man. He was depressed. He wasn't feeding me properly. He kept me locked up in the room when he would go to work. Like, it was wild.
Literally locked.
Literally locked in the room. And
Wow.
this was a house that he shared with people. So when he would come back and I would walk downstairs with him, the lady of the house is like, how come we never see you? And he's like, yeah, Des, how come we never see you? How come you never come out? And in my head, I'm like,
Because you locked me in a room.
yeah, I'm like, what the world?
Yeah.
You locked me in this room.
So was he trying to protect you from the other people in the house?
Honestly, I don't know what he was doing. He was very sad. He would cry a lot. He passed away in March. This
This
year.
March?
Yeah.
My condolences.
Yeah.
Wow. How old was he?
He was young. I think it was maybe 50s, early 50s.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. I thank God because through that situation with my dad, that at that point in Peoria, going through that with my dad, he was crazy. There was at one point where he got on top of me and started choking me out. Yes. These people saved me from him. I tried to escape from Peoria. I tried to hitchhike from Peoria back to Chicago. Thankfully, I got him to bring me back just by saying, like, I promise I won't leave you. I just want to see my mom. Like, I really miss my mom. Please take me to see my mom. And he's like, you're not going to leave, right? I'm like, I promise I won't leave.
So what was the trigger to make him want to choke you? Like, what was that?
It was so weird. He was tired, and we're downstairs. This is like, it was December. It was Christmas time. So that family that owned the house was like celebrating, and we were there with them, and his room is upstairs. And he wanted to go to bed. So he's like, let's go. And I'm like, but I'm not tired yet. Can I stay with them? And he's like, no, let's go. And I'm like, but I don't want to go. And they're like, no, let her stay.
Yeah.
He lost it.
Wow.
He just lost it. He got on top of me on the couch and like started choking me.
Well, while you were downstairs
While
with the
I was
family.
downstairs, so everyone saw that, yeah.
And were they
like,
opening
got
gifts
him
down
off.
there, or they were just down there celebrating?
I don't remember gifts. I think it was more like just adults.
Wow.
I don't remember kids too much. Just adults, like
That's crazy.
party, drinks, like, yeah.
And he said, who pulled them off of you?
They did.
Oh,
I
okay.
can't remember too much who,
Exactly, yeah.
what guys or
It's a
whatever.
blur,
but yeah, it's blurred. But when I made it back to Chicago, I told my mom everything that was happening there. Not to throw, my family or dad under the bus or anything, but there was more that happened in that house. Like, I finally became friends with someone at a school that they put me in. And when I brought her home to spend the night, my dad was like, I'll take your friend and you can have my friend. And there was a man waiting for me on a mattress, like laid on the floor.
Oh, my goodness.
Yeah, it is what it is. Thankfully, that guy did not do anything to me. I just remember feeling his hands, and they were very, what do you call that? They were very rough and like calloused.
Callous, yeah.
Calloused. I remember feeling his hands, and they were calloused. But
your
the
friend,
girl, yeah.
But she was a teen.
She was small. She was 13 too. So, yeah. I mean, this podcast is going deep, bro.
Wow. So I mean, he right there. Yeah.
He the next day when I'm like, I saw her, she seemed fine, but like closed off. I think she went home, and I'm like, what happened? I'm still young. I don't really know much. I'm like, what did you do? Like, what happened? And he was just laughing. He's like, I did something and, put something on her stomach, and she saw it and she was like kind of crying, like, what is that? And he was laughing. He thought it was so funny. But
wow.
yeah.
Wow, that's crazy.
We're going to get into that.
Hey, I mean, I'm telling you, that's what I'm saying. People who are dealing with things, I'm telling you, people have dealt with things, and just you telling that story is like, wow, I thought I was the only one that dealt with something like that. So, yeah, people need to hear the truth, because a lot of times, inside families, too, people want to keep stuff, like brush stuff under the carpet, and don't tell certain things like that. But it's freeing to to hear the truth, because a lot of young women, a lot of girls probably going through the same exact thing right now, and your story is going to, be that story that help them like, okay, I can make it through, especially with the suicide rate so high now, and the spirit of suicide and stuff. People need to know that they're not the only ones that have went through something, that they could make it through. They hear somebody else's story. So yeah. So I thank you for that.
Amen.
So you got back to Chicago, and what were you saying after that?
I went straight to my mom. I didn't want him to hear anything because I told him I would not say anything. I went straight to my mom and I said, please, like, I know we have not been good. I said, but don't send me back with that man. Mm-hmm. I'm like, he did this to my friend. He gave me a friend. Like he doesn't feed me, keeps me locked up in a room. Like, he's depressed, he's crying. He was doing things in front of me that I should not have seen, like in the bed, same bed, like that. Fortunately, I saw, it's like, goodness. Yeah, I'm like, and she was mortified. I don't think my mom expected that. She was so mortified, and she just told him, you need to leave this house right now or else I'm calling the cops. And he left, and I never saw him again.
Wow.
Yeah.
But did you go to his funeral?
No, no one did a funeral for him. But being the oldest child, it was hard because when he did pass away, the hospital contacted me. They wanted to know if he can be a donor, and then they started breaking it down to me. And that was hard for me to hear because I felt like I was crying, and I'm like, man, here I am having to talk about his body, and I didn't even get to have that father that I wanted. Yeah. But now it's like I'm bearing every hope that I had of seeing him again. I'm bearing every desire that I had of having this father figure, him coming to meet my kids. Because even after all of that, God touched my heart, man. 2 years ago, and it was the same. It was March, 2 years ago from this March, and I remember one time, I don't know what happened. It was like the Lord completely just broke my heart for him, and I just started weeping like this uncontrollable, like just crying and crying. And I was all alone, and I just kept thinking about him, and I'm like, God, save my dad. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, man, if I could just talk to him, if I could just tell him, like, man, I forgive you. I get it. Mm-hmm. I understand. Hurt people. And God has touched my heart so much that even after all that I've been through, I hold no anger, I hold no bitterness, I hold no grudge against anyone, at all. And my heart has just been completely set free from that. And I'm like, man, I don't know where this man's at. I don't know how to talk to him or anything. So I ended up writing a poem that I posted on Facebook and YouTube, and it was called Dear Dad. And I'm just like, if I knew where to send this, I would. It began like that. I don't even know how to get in contact with you, but I just pray, blah, blah. And I explain, I forgive you, whatever. So my aunt, his sister, ended up contacting me through Facebook, and she's like, I know where your dad is. So she gives me a number. She's like, he's in the hospital. This is his number. He's going through something right now, whatever. So I called. I have not spoken to this man since I was 13, and that was a serious fallout. You know, that was some serious stuff going on. And I called him, and I heard his voice, and it was wild to hear his voice. And he had this accent, the way he would say my name. And I'm just like, hello? And he's like, hello, who's this? And I'm like, your daughter. And he was like, what? And I shared the good news of Christ with him. I said, my mom told me that in your younger years, before you fell away from the Lord, that you used to be on fire, blah, blah. I'm like, dude, God's calling you back. And I said, and I want you to know that I hold no anger towards you. I forgive you. Wow. I'm like, I forgive you. And I even asked for forgiveness. I'm like, please forgive me for holding anger, bitterness, resentment, being upset. I'm like, I understand now that hurt people. And, I understand. And that's not to excuse anything. You know what I'm saying? That's not an excuse that people should go around being angry or being, not angry, being abusive hurtful. Abusive. It's stuff like that. It's no excuse at all. And I do believe that people, whether you are saved or not, if you have done something that you did, you need to pay the time. Yeah. You pay the time for the crime. Yeah. At the same time, God, give your heart to God, because that is the only place where you will experience true freedom. So I'm on the phone with him. I'm sharing the gospel, and he's just telling me I I know. I'm like, dude, the amount of times I've heard the I know from evangelizing on the
Yeah.
streets, I'm like, please don't be one of those people.
Uh-huh.
I'm telling you right now, you do not know when your time is up on this earth.
Yeah.
Give your heart to God. Go back to Him.
Uh-huh.
Go back to your first love. And then we ended up hanging up. He wasn't feeling his best, so he's like, I gotta go. We hung up, never spoke again. 2 years later, on March, I find out that he passed away.
Wow.
Suddenly, he was in the streets and had like some kind of a heart failure
Uh-huh.
and just dropped dead.
Wow.
And that was hard for me too, because I'm like, you know, I lead worship at my church. So something that not a lot of people know is like sometimes when I'm leading worship, I'm also like just talking to God.
Mm-hmm.
If that makes sense at all.
Yeah.
And I'm just like imagining like as I'm leading worship, one day I'll see my father walk through those doors.
Mm-hmm.
One day, man, we'll get to just have this moment where we hug, we cry it out, and it's beautiful, and it's just amazing, and he
Yeah.
receives freedom, and I watch my dad get saved
Mhm.
and rocked by Jesus,
Yeah.
and then my kids get to know their grandfather,
It
and
didn't
then
happen like that.
no,
Yeah.
bro, that for me, like that hit me hard. Like I was in my prayer closet with the Lord, and I journal, I write, you know, every day my prayers or, you know, hopes, dreams, whatever. So I'm writing, and I just wrote the last letter I'll write to you, Dad. And it was so sad, but
Uh-huh.
I'm like, you know, now I have to bury you. And like I said earlier, that's what hit me the most was like the thought of like, man, I'm not only like burying my dad, I'm burying all the hopes that I had of having that relationship, all the dreams that I had. I'm burying like those moments I had leading worship, you know, where I would imagine that my
Yeah.
dad would walk through the door, you know? So that was really tough. But at the end of that, like, I feel like even in moments like that, if you just listen, like, to the Lord or just allow your heart to just be still, even though waves are going by and it's loud and it's crashing and it's painful and it hurts and sometimes you feel like you're drowning.
Yeah.
There's always like little nuggets you can find and little parts of wisdom that you can get. And one of the things that just hit me hard, I wish I had my notebook with me, was I just said, like, you know, if your loved one is still out there, like, don't hold on to unforgiveness.
Mm-hmm.
Forgive. Like, literally just choose to forgive, choose to grow, choose to, you know, welcome some people back into your life. And that's not to say welcome them all,
Yeah.
you know, because I choose to forgive men who raped me. That doesn't mean I'm going to be their friends,
Yeah.
you know, at all. But there's so much freedom and beauty that comes from releasing something like that. It's almost like, if I can give you a visual, it's like carrying a backpack on your back that's like filled with like tons of bricks. And every time you've ever been hurt or, you know, offended or upset or dealt with whatever relationship problems, just broken homes, parents, all this stuff, like that's more bricks added to your backpack. And it's such a heavy load to be carrying, man.
Mm-hmm.
And for me, it's like, no matter what I went through, like I chose to take off that backpack, you know?
Mm-hmm.
God just let me know. Yeah, go ahead.
So you mentioned, of course, leading praise and worship, being a worship leader. When did you find out you could sing? Like, how did you discover that gift?
As a child, like my mom was very big into cleaning with music on and stuff like that. So from as young as I can remember, I always sang and always had a desire for music and to sing. And I would listen to a lot of like gospel, Kirk Franklin at the time and stuff like that. So I was really like, even as a child, I'm like, one day I'm going to sing, you know, like one day I'm going to sing. But my heart, even back then, it's funny though, but my heart was like, because God would give me dreams that, you know, I didn't have like the pop star dream. It was more like a dream where I'm walking onto the stage this way. So the stage is here, and out here is massive. It's huge, and it goes like far out, and each category is like different nations. And it was wild. And in this dream, I'm walking on the stage this way, and there's a pastor there. And I begin to turn around, and I look at all these people, and it's literally like every nation, every tongue, like different types of people.
Mm-hmm.
And the song that I begin to sing says, "Hear the sound of the nations calling."
Mm-hmm.
And that's a dream that has stuck in my head since I was young. And like I've carried that still. I carry that still to this day.
Wow.
Like one day.
That's amazing.